Hello, my dear friends. This is your friend Dr. Suresh Shenvi again on Aspire32, and it has been some time since we did a podcast. I am meeting few amazing people in this session where we are trying to cover up new topics. And today I have Dr. Kapil Jadhav with me, and I'm very happy to introduce him to you because Sir has done a lot of work in US after his undergraduation from Nasik. He is currently an endodontist, but he is also an associate endodontist, but also assistant professor and director, specialty care unit of endodontics in St. Louis. And the CV is really big. I mean, he has worked with special care for patients with special care needs. He has done his DDS before doing endodontics, and today I welcome Dr. Kapil Jadhav sir to this podcast, and this topic is around his journey, why he planned to go to US, and since he has a lot of information about the interview process which you will have to appear after you clearing the exam. That is where he will be focusing. So thank you, sir, for accepting this invite and giving me your time for this podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Shenvi. Actually, it's a pleasure to be on this podcast. It's a real honor to be able to connect with you and be able to help people back in India. The thing is, when I came to the US, I started totally blank and I did not have much information. So all the information that I have gathered over the period of time is like right from the scratch. So I always think that, when you're in a position to help others, you should, because life is all about uplifting each other. And I think so it's very important for us to be supportive of our peers who want to come to the US and explore the possibilities of the education in the United States.
Very true, sir. And that is precisely we focus on the Aspire 32 because when I came to US, it was a very difficult task, and I thought, why not do something like this by having our own YouTube channel? But today's focus is knowing your journey, and I feel very proud that I'll be sharing your information with my audience. So straight to the topic, sir. You did your undergraduation from Nasik in 2001, sir. You finished in 2001. I joined dentistry in 2003. So you are 2-3 years senior to me, and today you have reached such a high level. So what went through your mind, and what made you decide that you want to pursue the degrees in United States?
So, I have a long story about why I wanted to come to the United States to begin with. So I have an aunt who lives in Texas, and she has a child who is autistic. And it is one of the reasons I have a special place in my heart with kids who are with special to come to the United States and pursue education, because I was always fascinated talking to my other cousins who are in the United States about the advancement in the education system. So in 2002, actually, I was admitted to the University of Oklahoma for a master's in public health program. But somehow 9/11 happened, and along with the Twin Towers, my dreams were crushed too, because at that time, the scrutiny was at a very higher level, and they were rejecting US visas for students very sporadically and very quickly. So at that point, I was like, okay, maybe it is not in my destiny to go to the United States. So I put those things on the back burner, started my own clinic. For 13 years I was in practice, and I was very happy doing my practice. But there was always this deep desire in my heart that one fine day I should go to the United States and pursue my higher education. Because we all, when we are young and we think, oh, money is going to make me happy, I'm going to work really hard. But eventually, as you grow in your practice, you realize that your priority is never the money. It's always about growing as a professional. And I thought my growth was stunted after a certain period of time where I knew that I have a deep desire to become a teacher. Even when I was in the NGV Dental College, all my professors knew that I wanted to go to the United States. I would become a good teacher. And that is the reason why I decided that it is never too late in life to pursue your dreams, because I did not want to have regrets in my life that, oh, I had everything at my disposal. I had a great practice. I had great amount of money, family support, finances. financial support was great and everything was nice. But it is very important to understand the value of your dreams. I always tell people that you are the only person who will understand the value of your dreams, because a majority of us focus on money. Money is not everything at the end of the day. It will give you the liberty and luxury to buy things, but at the end of the day, your dreams are your dreams. And I think so it's very important for me to pursue my dreams. So again, cutting it short, in 2013, I had a back injury and I was bedridden for 2 months. So the first month I was like, why this happened to me, being melodramatic. And the second month I was like, thank you that this happened to me, because it gave me the first time an opportunity to think where I was going wrong in my life, or what was the change I needed to do in my life to live a healthy lifestyle. And during that period of time, I thought maybe I should give myself a second chance and try my dream of higher education.
That's quite inspiring, sir. And I think the reason for asking you the age is because many people just give up the dreams because they think now it's not the time, and I've spent a lot of time. But people like you, inspire others to think of achieving their dreams, even though, it may or may not be late. But if you have a dream, as you said, you can always achieve it at any age. So I'm very interested in knowing some important aspect. Like you had a practice, and when you thought of leaving, I'm sure there would be a lot of important decisions. Like you will have to think about finances. Many people do inform that DDS is very very expensive. You have to take a co-signer, and you are leaving your practice here. I'm sure a lot of your family members might have told you, why do you have to do this? So how did you face these all these challenging questions, and what can you advise our viewers if they have such kind of thoughts in their mind?
I think so. The most broader question here is like, how deep you want to pursue your dream? And you need to make a planning. This was not like an overnight decision. It took like a year and a half to kind of manage everything as to how I'm going to plan my finances, because I started off with my program with public health. I did my master's in public health first. So I had managed the money for that program. And I had a co-signer in the United States who was going to help me with my dental education loans. So I was very lucky when I started my public health program that I got an internship, which helped me with my finances in terms of paying off for my tuition and giving me a little stipend. A lot of schools in the United States do not offer opportunities in terms of internship or finances when it comes to public health. But my school, the University of Illinois in Springfield, had a program which is called as a graduate public service internship program, which offers internship in public health. And that is what helped me get my foot into the door in trying to understand the working culture of the United States. As far as finances are concerned, I think so you need to have a backup plan, especially in terms of emergency medical funds. If those are needed, you need to adjust your finances for travel, if you have to travel back and forth to India because of family issues or concerns. And then also it is very important for you to have finances for your education. It's not possible for everybody to get an internship, so it's always good to have a backup plan. Now, going on to the next topic of pursuing DMD, I had family who had supported me in, co-signing my loans. But this is something that is going to really surprise you. I have a friend, his name is Richard Chartrand. He co-signed my loan for my second year of DDS and my first year of residency. Besides that, I had some friends from high school who supported me in my journey during residency. And last but not the least, my last semester was the toughest. I had to liquidate all my policies and all my money in India to pay for that semester. But I know this was all worth it. I went through all these hardships, but I could not be thankful to enough to my family and my friends who supported me in this journey. And I was lucky and I was blessed, but it may not be the case for everybody. So you need to have a financial backup. You need to have a co-signer in the United States who will co-sign your loans for the DMD program. If you're able to manage the finances from India, that is great. But ideally, it would be better if you can take the loans in the US and pay the loans in dollars back.
We have multiple podcasts on how to finance, and Dr. Abhishek, who also finished his DDS in US, has answered many aspects of it. But one thing, there are people who have told me that many times that the foreigners do help you with co-signing your loan, and I don't know. Is it, yeah, because it will be difficult to find Indians who will sign, unless they are a family. And I'm sure that you would have made new friends, but do they like? Is it possible that everybody can get someone who is a foreigner, and this journey do they really help? Like, is it possible for everyone?
I am going to be very honest with this question. I became friends with Richard, when I was in dental school, and he knew about my story and difficulties that I was going through. And so he was impressed with the amount of hard work that I was going through. So our friendship was the first rock solid foundation of the bonding that we had before I even asked him to co-sign my loan. He was very generous and understood the value of knowledge because he was having his own hardships when he grew up as a child, and he gave a lot of importance to education. And I think so that was the major drawing factor for him to support my education. And as far as the second part of the question is like, is it easy to get a foreigner to sign your loan? I think so. It's really a hard question because the thing is, how can somebody become your co-signer when you kind of don't know them, or you don't have enough time that you spend with them to believe you? It's a really hard question, and it's unfortunate that sometimes when Indians cannot support you, it's very hard to expect something from foreigners. Again, otherwise they're very helpful, very understanding, but to expect somebody to co-sign your loan is a risk, and I'm not sure if everybody is willing to take that. But other than that, I think so I would not have been able to go through my journey. I mean, besides the financial support that I got from my family, or friends, but the emotional support that I got from my friends and understanding the culture, the communication skills part of it, and the different aspects of how to lead an American life while living your true Indian values and cultures also was very important in terms of my friendships with all these people who I've become friends in the United States.
Amazing, sir, and it is really heartening to see that how much gratitude you have for all these relations, and I'm sure that is the best thing. The respect what you have is something will be highly appreciated by the people who have helped you. You did mention that there is a possibility of getting an internship. I just want to talk I want to ask you a few questions about it because this is not
Sure.
something which others have mentioned. We do have a very detailed podcast on MPH in US, but many people comment on that podcast saying that can you get a job with just a MPH because getting visa after MPH working visa is a challenge. That is what many people have mentioned. Do you have any information on this topic?
Absolutely. So, talking about public health, I'm going to talk about schools in general first, and then I'll talk about my experience. So, a lot of schools provide you summer internship so that you can get an experience about how to work in a public health department. A lot of schools don't have that opportunity for internship. So, it differs from school to school. If you're looking for public health, particularly, it's a good idea to look into the school's website for any teaching assistantship positions, okay, or research assistantship positions. If any faculty will give you like a 10-hour or a 20-hour, because that's the max you can work as a student in a week. So it's very good, besides the application for public health, to look and contact faculty for availability of any teaching assistantship or research assistantship positions. There are also like graduate assistantships, they are called, to look into those things. As far as a lot of schools are there, you will usually get some kind of an assistantship, but it's not always the case depending on how big or small the school is.
Okay.
As far as University of Illinois Springfield was concerned, as I have mentioned before, that they had this graduate public service internship program. And I was very fortunate to get an internship with the Illinois Department of Public Health. This is like a state funded agency, and I was able to work with HIV surveillance and deal with a lot of data collection and surveillance activities of people who are suffering from HIV and AIDS. As I said, this experience was very instrumental and life-changing for me because it made me understand the vulnerable population that we are dealing with, and also the problems when it comes to health coverage and insurances in the United States. I had an amazing supervisor. Her name was Christine, and she was such a hardworking person who really inspired me to give my best. Although I was an intern, I just felt like I was giving all my 100% and not taking this job for granted. And I think so I had great examples in front of me while doing my internship. I have seen a lot of people who take their internships very lightly, but I was one of them. I feel like very proud to do an internship as if it was my full-time job. My dad used to always tell me that whenever you work for a job, work as if it is your own company. And I think so that was a very remarkable lesson that I had learned from him. And that's exactly what I did in every single job that I had in the United States.
I really appreciate you giving a detailed information about this MPH and the prospects. But I think I just wanted to know that how easily can you get a job on just MPH in United States?
Sure. I'm sorry I missed that part of the question. So as far as Masters in Public Health is concerned, here's the real underlying issue that we have to understand. A lot of students, be it medical or dental, they come from various countries to the United States because they have the goal either to do public health or pursue higher education. So the basic question is, when I have 10 candidates standing in front of me who have done Masters in Public Health, what is that makes you stand out? So for example, if you go to a public health school, which you have no experience after graduation, doing any sort of internship in any department, of course, you will be at a disadvantage. So when you're trying to select schools that will give you opportunities to give you some sort of internship. It can be a summer or a full-time internship while you're in school. And as far as the jobs are concerned, yes, there is a concern to just get a job who will sponsor you H-1B visa, which is the work visa, for you to be able to stay in the United States. But again, in addition to public health, if you get your hands on some sort of software like SPSS or R, where you can prove that you are an advantage besides your public health in handling data, that will give you a leverage to the company to see you as a valuable asset and wanting to hire you as a potential employee and sponsoring your H-1B visa. And I just want to quote one little thing about the job opportunities. Many a times people spread misinformation than real information. I'm going to give you an example. So when I was in public health, I was told by a few students who too were wanting to get into dental school that, oh, the chances of you getting into dental school are very slim because the dental schools don't want old students. If I believed in them and if I did not give my 100%, I would not be standing here in front of you and giving this interview. So of course, there are always success stories and there are failure stories. But I think so you have to be passionate about what you do, irrespective of the fact whether you're going to be successful or failure. You have to give your 100%. And all those people who say they never failed are talking lies. There is nobody who will get success without any failure. And failure should not be a roadblock in achieving your dreams. So yes, public health is a good potential to get jobs. But again, what is that makes you stand out when you're going for a job interview? That is something that you have to focus. It could be as small as a research project that you did that was very interesting and appealing, or in some sort of summer internship, or a teaching or a graduate assistantship. That gives you more experience and leverage than the other candidates applying for the same job.
Thank you for that information, sir. And then after finishing the MPH, you did apply for the DMD program, and I think now you are involved in conducting the interviews also. That is what, am I right that are you involved currently in taking interviews of the students?
Yeah, so I have been on the admissions committee to interviews traditional students for interviews to the dental school in St. Louis where I work. I got inspired by you also, and I actually did a little presentation for another school on interview skills and application process just 2 weeks ago. And yes, it's been interesting to sit on the other side of the table and to interview applicants, and it gives you a more depth understanding of how people are different from one another, and then how hard of a choice it is to pick up a candidate because everybody looks good on paper, you know.
Yeah. I think that is where I wanted to discuss more. And the important thing here is you are a student. I'm sure your way of giving the interview that time, maybe you had a different thought process. And now, since you are in the position of conducting the interview, I had a few questions, and I'm sure you will be the best person to answer this. So, what role the interview has in the admission process of the DMD? Because everybody has to clear the INBDE. Majority dental schools would expect you to complete the INBDE exam. And then some schools do have the bench test. Some schools definitely, I think majority do conduct the interview, if not the bench test. So how much weightage the interview has in the admission, in the selection of the student?
So I'm going to break this answer into two parts. So the first part is, as far as bench tests are concerned, a majority of the dental schools do take bench tests. Again, the bench test is graded by usually two examiners, and then you're given a score. And you have a different score for an interview too. So interviews are scored differently from the bench test, and those two factors are combined together in making a decision. For example, you may do phenomenally well in your bench test, but you are not very humble or confident in your interview process. Now, I can look at this in two different ways. Either I may want to select you, understanding that you are nervous as a person, but you have great hand skills. But if there could be a person who has done phenomenally well in their bench test, but is overtly arrogant or not humble when it comes to the interview, I would not want to work with that candidate. So when I'm interviewing a student, I'm particularly looking for three things. One thing is confidence. The second thing is your ability to communicate your thoughts and express them well. And the third most important thing that I'm looking for a person when I'm interviewing is, are you a team player? Are you someone who is willing to learn? Are you someone who is willing to take criticism and work on themselves? So these are three major factors when I'm looking at while I make a decision when I'm interviewing a candidate. I never make a decision on a candidate just based off their interview. I mean, our school does have only interviews, and that is very challenging sometimes because you really don't know what their hand skills are. But whenever I interview other students where they have given a bench test and interviews, I usually make a combination of both the scores and don't just go off by scores of the bench test. I think so it's very important for you to be humble. You should show your willingness to work. You should come across as a genuine person and not somebody who is faking or lying to become a student in the DMD program or the DDS program. I think so it comes across when you talk to the faculty who is interviewing you. Because once you are in the interview process, everybody's at the same level. It doesn't matter what your GPA was, what your award was. The most important thing is, how do you stand out? How do you come across as a genuine person or a student that who is willing to go above and beyond of what is expected to exceed in the program? So I think so these are some of the qualities that are very, very important when I'm looking at a candidate.
I'm sure that we have a lot to talk about the interviews, but I'm always curious that before you get the opportunity to answer those questions, you need to get an invite for the interview. And I have learned it in a very harsh way because I had cleared NBD part 1 and part 2 in a matter of 23 days when I came to US to give the exam. And then I applied in the University of Connecticut, which was a free course, some general dentistry course. Of course, because my brother was studying in US that time. And I had a pretty much good CV that I was a postgraduate student. I had finished my post-graduation work experience. I was an author, speaker. That time I did not have my YouTube channel. But they did not even call me for an interview. And it was quite depressing to see that. And I did ask many people. And one thing which I came to know, which the program director in some other course told me, was an Indian, that you may be an excellent, person with achievements in India, but they really don't know. And if you have an American experience of any course, that is when you tend to get some opportunities, even for interview, in courses which are very competitive. What are the some things which you would like to advise our students in order to get the opportunity to get an interview?
This is a very broad question, and I'm going to answer again in a couple of parts. The most important thing is to not to give up, because a lot of students get depressed, give up on their dreams just because they could not make it in the first cycle. It is very important what is the difference in your application from the first cycle versus second cycle. A lot of schools will look into what difference have you made. So a couple of things, if you really want to make your application stand out, is a well-written CV or a resume that details your major achievements. When it comes to shadowing, it is not important if you did 10 or 50 different shadowings for different organizations or different offices. It is very important that you have a broader or a longer duration of experience than just multiple numbers. It's the duration that counts, not the number of experiences that counts. So a lot of people will write like I shadowed or I volunteered for 20 different causes. No, volunteer for 4 or 5, but volunteer for a long duration of time. That's the most important thing where they look in terms of volunteer experiences. Definitely, it is enough an advantage if you can shadow a dentist in the United States. So if some students are coming to the United States for their NBDE, if they have friends or some colleagues who are in the United States and can arrange an shadowing experience at a dentist who is either in the dental school or has a private practice, that can definitely add to your application process. It is really beneficial if you can get a letter of recommendation from some dentist who is US based, which can really leverage your application. Another equally important thing is to have a TOEFL score of 100 plus, because a lot of schools pay an emphasis on the TOEFL score of 100 plus. Again, it's very like a double-edged sword. You may be a good clinician, you may be a good student, but you may not be a good English speaker, which may prevent you from getting an interview. So a lot of dental schools have a cut line or a deciding factor of 100 plus before they can accept applications. Again, we also have to understand from a dental school's perspective, they have to give a cutoff somewhere so as to reduce the number of applications, because the number of applications for 6 spots can be up to 650. So how do you cut down the applications? So you have to also understand the dental school's perspective in that situation. So apart from the application, a US experience is definitely helpful. Some sort of experience in terms of research, if you're able to get it in India, even if you're assisting, that is great. But also it is important to understand that you have to submit your application ideally within the first month the application cycle opens up. Because the more delay you have in submitting your application, it reduces your chances of getting an interview. However, there are some schools which give interviews on a rolling basis, which means they will process the applications as they come. So if you process your application later in the cycle, there is less likelihood that you will get an interview. So rolling basis, it's like the moment the application comes, they start submitting their requests for people to be interviewed. While there are some other schools who will wait till the deadline before they can give interviews. But honestly, it is my personal experience. The more earlier that you can submit your application, the more important it is for the school to look at your application with enough time and gives them enough idea about different aspects of your application rather than rushing through an application. So it's very important and it's very critical that you submit your application within the first month of the application cycle. And this not only includes your well-written CV, a good personal goal statement, letters of recommendation. I'm going to highlight a little bit on personal goal statements. As much as people pay importance to a CV, very critical for a dental school is to see a candidate in terms of their personal goal statement. I almost spent 3 to 4 months writing and revising my personal goal statement. When the statement says personal, it has to be something that you're telling a compelling story. You are not bragging about your achievements. You are not bragging about your awards. You are not bragging about how many patients you've seen. You're not bragging about the procedures you do. You tell a compelling story that why do you want to go to the United States? You give an experience that changed your life, that you became a dentist to begin with. You talk about your volunteer experiences and how that has made you humble in understanding how people are unfortunate or underprivileged to get dental treatments. And at the end of the day, you combine all these experiences, your educational experiences, your volunteer experiences, your personal experience, and then you make a statement in a concluding paragraph in your personal goal statement as to why you're a good candidate. A lot of emphasis has to be paid on this. Personal goal statement, as I said, unfortunately, a lot of people don't really get the idea of what it should be, but it has to be something very personal. It has to tell me a compelling story as a reader as to why I want to interview you.
Thank you, sir. Then, as you said, if everything works out very well, then you do have an opportunity to get an interview. What type of questions are generally asked in the interview process?
Sure. So there are a couple of questions based on different schools that they are usually asked in dental school. So I'm going to talk about my mistakes first that I did while preparing for the interview at a dental school. So when I first interviewed at Indiana University, I was of the impression that I need to know answer, or I need to by heart, or have scripted answer rather, every answer to every question. I realized after that interview, I was being so scripted and being so not so myself that I realized that that was the biggest mistake I could do, was to have scripted answers or written answers for an interview question. My advice while going for any interview is to have a bullet points of the topics that you want to answer your question, but not have scripted or written answers. That's the biggest mistake you will do. And now going back to the questions that are usually asked in dental school, the first and the most common question that they ask in the dental school is, tell me something about yourself. And I will kind of walk you through a couple of tips and tricks that the way you need to answer these questions. But let's talk about some of the questions first. The most common question, which is the open-ended question, is tell me something about yourself. Then the next common question is, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Tell me about your experience in the United States or in India. And schools like to know why you want to seek admission into their dental school. Then they will talk about your volunteer experience. They want to know about how do you de-stress yourself, because dentistry education and the profession itself is a very stressful environment. So how do you have a life outside dental school? They want to know you as a person and not just somebody who is just a dentist. School interview, I was asked, what is one thing that you wish you could change in the world?
Yeah,
And
and
coincidentally, I had just read in the newspaper.
what was the answer to this question?
Yeah, so I read a lot of newspaper because I read a lot of interviews that are online or just on YouTube. And incidentally, a week before that, there was some event going on in Charlottesville, and somebody ran a car into that, killing a lot of people. And it was kind of something which is not a good thing for somebody to do and kill people out of rage or some kind of hate. So I use that as an example to say if I were to change something, I would change the hate that is going on in the world. And I backed my answer with that example as to why I am stating this. So it's very important that when you talk about an answer, that you give an example to support your answer. And I think so that was very well taken. And I should not be bragging about this, but I was the topmost candidate when in terms of my interview grading. So I think so it was very important for me to be very natural, be myself, because we had 5 different interviews with 5 different faculties. So there was no way I was going to be scripted. I went into these interviews just being myself and knowing who I was as a person. And that really helped me get confidence, because how much are you going to script your answers for 5 different interviews with 5 different people? So the best thing is I knew my CV well, I knew my personal goal statement well, and I was trying to come across as a genuine person, not somebody who was fake or scripted. And I think so that's the key thing, to just be yourself and be honest, be open to communication, be able to make a joke. If the faculty is making a joke, you should be able to make a joke without being rude. You have to be respectful. So you have to be yourself. You know, being fake or being artificial, people can easily make it out. So be yourself and be confident in what you do. Do not lie. Lies is something on your application or into interviews that will not take you anywhere. Do not lie on your application at all.
Okay. And I think as a student, we actually don't realize that people can easily judge whether you are genuine or whether you're faking, because that type of maturity, I'm not sure that type of thought process is actually developed at a very young age. But I think as a teacher today, you just need a minute to know whether the person, whether they are faking, and the way they speak, you really can, at least, can get an idea that whether they are really telling the truth. That has been my experience, and I think
Absolutely.
maybe when you had applied, you had so much of experience that also had contributed, because as you said, you went to US after 13 years of your practice, and by the time we have really seen the world. What so I don't think there is any way you can, like, you have so much information, where you really don't have to fake. You have seen everything in your life. You have seen your practice. You have been into teaching. You have developed so many good relation with everyone. I think that is what may have helped you. So that is what I believe. Uh, and do you think the way, like you said, you did take some mock interviews? Do they really help all this way? I'm sure that there are some services or facilities available. There are some people who help you to prepare for the interview. Do you advise the students to take all those mock interviews before they appear for this actual one?
Yeah, I mean, there are different services that charge quite a lot of money when it comes to preparing your application, preparing your CV, and interview process. These are good services, but again, they are pretty expensive. Uh, for me personally, I did not seek any of the services at all for preparing for my interviews. I worked hard myself, trying to write my CVs, my personal goal statement. As I said, I did everything from scratch, and I think so that really helped me. I'm not opposed to people who have the financial abilities to go through the services to enhance their application, or seek services which will edit your CV. I'm not opposed to that, but I think so it's very important for you to practice with somebody one-on-one who will help you with your interviews. And I think so that's the best way to go. I think to do everything by yourself, because you are the one who is the author of your own story. Again, no harm in seeking help from other people. Your faculty in India will be good resource to help you. People who are in the United States who are already into the dental school or who have gone through the application cycle will be your good resources. And as I said, with the internet, it's become a global village. You can always look upon things online. And of course, if there are students who need some help, I'm always willing to offer them to the best of my abilities within my capacity to help them out the best I can.
How much time do they generally keep the interview for? Is it like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? How many questions do they generally ask? 5, 10?
So normally an interview is scheduled for a half an hour. But again, they usually have a script that each faculty is given to ask questions. But some faculty love to go, out of script to ask questions. I really don't like to ask scripted questions. The reason is because it makes the student very nervous. I want to know the student overall. So I will ask some questions which are not in my script to understand the student better. So an interview may last usually 30 minutes is the standard. And each school usually has 2 interviews a minimum, and some schools can have anywhere ranging from 3 to 5. That's usually the pattern. And there are 2 schools like pre-interview, like usually 3 or 4 faculties will be sitting, and then you sit down with them and they will ask questions one by one. So there's also a group interview. There are also interviews with the students in some schools who will ask you questions. It is equally important for you to be very honest and open and kind of respectful, even if you're interviewing with the students, because their feedback also is important while the committee makes a decision whether to accept a candidate or not.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I think it's a very well-formed committee who is trying to understand thoroughly whether you are the right candidate. Uh, the way you dress, the way you enter the chamber or the room, do you have any tips for that?
Oh, absolutely. So, Dr. Shenvi, I'm going to tell you something that how I drove myself crazy trying to prepare for dental school interviews. And the reason for that is I had no idea what to do, how to do. So I looked up online for multiple hours, reading articles, videos on how to dress up, what are the body language signs, what is the psychology behind